I'm going to start with some outline of the session for today. I want to start with a quick, some quick news and updates about the activity, do some check-in, so everybody can say how are you, and like, I don't know, like have a little moment to socialize. And then we're going to start directly with the group discussion. Unfortunately, there wasn't like a person that offered to do the summary. So in that case, we're just going to spend more time on the group discussion. So we're going to split like 25 on group discussion in breakout rooms and 25 in plenary. And hopefully in that last section, we will have time to do follow-ups and kind of continue the conversation. Last week was maybe we didn't have too much time on that. So maybe this time we can continue that conversation a bit more. So this week, the chapter that we are going to discuss is chapter 2 on reliability, precision, and error of measurement. And well, Robert Brennan confirmed as the expert for the Q&A session, and that's going to happen in 2 weeks. So as I explained in previous sessions, we had to switch, and Susan Lane is going to be next week for the Q&A on chapter 1, and then we're going to have Q&A on chapter 2 with Robert Brennan. Last Wednesday was the deadline for sending questions to Susan Lane. However, you can still add more questions in the Envision board. And also for the Q&A session, we are going to have time after responding like the list of questions that I sent to her. We will going to have time for doing questions in the moment. So yeah, think for more questions. There's still room for receiving more questions in the Envision board and also for the moment of the session. I've been talking with Scott a little bit about this, to the possibility of eventually meeting as a group during the NCME conference and like allocating some time to kind of meet in person. I'm not sure what do you think about it. I guess you would be interested, but maybe we can discuss more about that in the future. Yeah, I think it would be nice to have at least one opportunity to meet in person and speak about the whole process of the standard study group. So yeah, let's see. Okay, yes, that would be great. All right, so check-in. So I want you to, I'm going to do like breakout rooms, do a short introduction. Please introduce yourself, say how are you today, and I would like you to share what classes have you had or you could have in your program that are related with reliability and error of measurement? Like in which classes do you learn that? So let me. All right, so I think we have everybody back. So we are going to do now the group discussion. So we're going to just go ahead. So we are going to have 25 minutes. And again, please be mindful of the time when you are speaking in the groups. And please define a secretary to kind of write the notes in the Envision. I have a question for you. So how do you feel with the use of the Envision board? Are you liking it or no? This is too complicated. Can you speak a little bit about that?
I like it. I think it's easy to use.
Okay. Somebody else?
I thought it was good. I like the activity of writing questions and then liking them. I couldn't figure out the like button. I got to figure that out. But it was easy enough to like put check marks next to things.
I saw some
syllables.
Yes.
Syllables.
Syllables. Okay. All right. So yeah, we are going to continue using the Envision boards, and so please, as the same as in the previous session, for each group, write a sticky note in the zone. And give me 1 second. Let me. And sorry. And one last thing, if you want to do the discussion in Spanish, you can leave your room and come back to the main room and we can have the discussion with me in Spanish. So if you want to do that, please take opportunity of that. And give me 1 second to share the link of the vision board to put that in the chat. Okay. So we have 15. So I'm going to do 4 groups this time. And okay. All right. So I just sent the invite for you to join. In 25 minutes. Welcome back. So I think group 2 and 3, you didn't write in the vision board?
Yeah, sorry, we got a little off topic. I'm gonna add some stuff now.
Okay, yeah, I think I see now. I put like a screenshot of each group and the people on each group in the vision board, if you don't remember the number of your group. Okay, so let's start with group 1. So can somebody from group 1 speak about your discussion, please? And I will give you, have 20 minutes, let's say 3 minutes.
All right, I will share for group 1. So we kind of started with a conversation related to the reliability, or related to the IRT metric for reliability. We hadn't really heard that before, you know, thinking about an information function and how it can be related to reliability. And so we were kind of interested in thinking and talking more about that. Like, what does that look like? What actual metric is it? And how do you use it? And how do people report it? We just had never seen that before. We also talked a lot about credentialing and how it's kind of mentioned, that the consistency of decision making is also important, not just the consistency of scores. And we thought that could have, had some more attention in this chapter. Just what does that look like? Where is it applied when you're thinking about consistency of decisions? The major part of our discussion was about users. There was a specific quote on page 40 where it says, local users of a test or assessment procedure must accept at least partial responsibility for documenting precision of measurement. And so we were kind of thinking that that's a lot to put on users. We talked about this a bit last week too, but thinking about some users, if you're looking at a local school district, are you expecting the local school administrators or district administrators to be kind of looking at these things, and will they do it? Who are they being held? Who's holding them responsible? Who is checking to make sure that the test developers and the users are balancing the responsibilities listed in the standards? So we thought that there could be some more discussion about who the users are, whether these local units need expert psychometricians who can be held responsible for the requirements that are listed in the standards. Because I don't remember if it said it in chapter 1, but defining a user, that's pretty broad. And I think that's somewhat intentional, to make the contexts be generalizable. But when you get down into it, it's like, okay, well, who has even the ability to be held responsible for these things at the local unit? Lastly, we talked about how this is we think the standards are a little difficult to read, even, you know, and this is kind of reading we do a lot, you know, we've all found it difficult to get through some of these chapters. And so the language is just really dense. And so again, how can users be expected to follow the document and be held responsible for these things? And so we kind of thought that a way that they could better deal with that and be less dense is to maybe have some more examples. Like they had a good example on page 47 about just a couple of sentences about how to document reliability. So yeah, that's pretty much what group 1 talked about. Anyone from group 1 have anything else? Cool.
Excellent summary.
All right, thank you very much. And yes, it's funny how the users are mentioned, but when you think about the standard, you imagine that the test developer should read the standards. But it seems that many more people should be reading. There are like rules for more people. All right, so group 2, somebody from group 2 want to?
All right, I will unmute myself. And yes, I even have my timer up, so I'm gonna try to nail this 3 minutes. Okay, so continuing on with the idea of thinking through the users. One question that came up was in standard 2.11, it was about subgroup reliability, and it said test publishers should provide estimates of reliability / precision as soon as feasible. And I'll stop there because the word feasible is, I think, key. My question was should decision makers withhold decisions until that information is received? And then last presenter just said will they do that? And if so, is this did I miss this in the standards? Should it be included? And just so continuing a bit more on filling in some gaps on understanding more about the users, who they are and their responsibilities. We talked about some projects people are working on. We have someone working on open-ended questions in math, measuring the reliability, the rate of reliability of those. We have someone working on estimating reliability with IRT on multi-choice state testing. We had someone working on a tool for test developers and educators to help inform test item writing to limit construct irrelevant variance. So we talked about that for a bit. Then we talked generally just kind of working through some of these concepts, you know, some ideas around increasing reliability. So it's increase the number of test items to reduce error and increase reliability, right? And then just the fact that there are different types of reliability. And then question just filling in our understanding and bouncing ideas off each other on what's the relationship between validity and reliability. Everyone kind of gave an answer. The metaphor of the target. So validity is the target and the reliability is the clustering of the shots that you take at the target. And they're similar. And then just the idea that reliability is necessary but not sufficient to making a sound validity argument. Were all kind of things that we came up with. And then we were talking about IRT versus CTT, and the idea IRT is arguably better for many applications for estimating reliability than CTT, but you still need CTT, it's important.
All right, thank you very much. Somebody from group 3 would like to jump in.
I can do it. So we got a little bit off topic, I would say, but I can talk about some of the things we talked about. One of them was potentially adding an appendix with equations for popular or recommended reliability coefficients. Probably not necessarily appropriate for in-text, but you know, we talked about how coefficient alpha tends to be the one that's most often reported, and it might be helpful if the standards, you know, kind of listed a bunch of other ones that might be more appropriate or important in other situations, because it does mention, you know, there's not one that's appropriate everywhere, but we definitely find alpha overreported, and so it might be helpful if that was point out in some capacity, obviously not, just criticizing Alpha, but just basically saying these are all the things that you could do in a brief appendix at the end might be helpful. And then some other things that I don't want to speak for the rest of the group. So some of the things that I had just been wondering about is, should the guidelines be different at all for psychological assessments, like some of the concerns with psychological assessments in terms of, there might not be as much opportunity for like maybe like a lot of items, some of the scales are a lot shorter that psychologists tend to use, because people don't pay attention or aren't motivated to pay attention in the same way. And then just the last thing is just who is the intended audience for the standards? Is it test users, test creators, is it test takers? And then I don't think the standards can be written for everyone. So, in such a way that everyone is able to understand it. So maybe be kind of clear about who the audience is and speak to that audience. I don't know if anyone else wants to say anything.
Anybody else from group 3? You have a little bit of time.
I'll say one thing that I thought of so I work in a lot of credentialing, and there is a whole credentialing chapter later, right, in the standards. So maybe you would go more into the reliability and decision consistency pieces in there. I'm not sure. That's what I'm thinking with that.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, group 3. Somebody from group 4, please.
I can go ahead and give an overview of what we were talking about. I think we hit upon some of the same themes as some of the other groups. So we were also kind of wondering who's the intended audience. Can we expect teachers or principals to understand the standards? Or we also kind of talked about how can we communicate reliability to a broader audience so that it sounds relevant and is easy to understand for people without the similar backgrounds. Let's see, what else did we bring up? There were some questions about where other factors fit in that didn't seem to be considered in reliability, such as score indeterminacy. So that was one question that came up. I had a question about intra-rater reliability versus inter-rater reliability. So I've worked in language testing, so I've kind of wondered how consistent people are with their own scoring. But in things I've read, I've heard more about inter-rater reliability. So I've kind of wondered how much emphasis is or should be put on intra-rater reliability. Am I missing anything from any other my group members?
Yeah, right before we got called back to the main room, we were talking about the different coefficients that you could use, how everyone uses Cronbach's alpha, although lots of people say that it shouldn't be used in most cases, and like omega isn't used as often.
Okay, all right. Anybody else from group 4?
I'll just add, I think another aspect is related to the audience usage issue, but what level of inference can we expect the user to make given the information that's provided? It's not clear necessarily, and I may have missed it, how this chapter might integrate information from, say, the first chapter, given, say, different levels of reliability in different settings and different use cases, such as with subscores or change scores.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, very interesting topics in general that appeared. Now we have a few minutes, so I will take note of people that want to speak, and you will have 1 minute to follow up or continue any of the topics. And I want you to raise your hand. Use the function raise hand here to to like enlist for speaking. So please, if you want to follow up on something, raise your hand. It's in reactions. Nobody wants to speak. Okay. Right. Okay, so we have Stacy, please.
I'll just jump in. I mean, I'm just noticing that with all of us talking, we keep coming back to this idea of users having responsibility and therefore needing to be able to read the standards. So I like a lot of the ideas that people put forth of more clear language or providing examples or just some way of making it friendly to those users if we really have expectations for them.
And actually, sometimes when you simplify or you give examples, you go more deeper into the argument that you are making, like the rhetorical part of the argument, if you want, in the standards. That shouldn't be like, that's something always important anytime you are making the case for something. So yeah, that thing is very important. Somebody else wants to share something? Maybe raise the hand, it's going to be too formal, so just jump in. Something that I find interesting is, well, I mean, sorry, I can't remember the name of the person that said this, but Bryce, you. I mean, the standard are not saying anything about the specific definition of reliability, and it's not saying if we should or we should not use, or in which context we should use. And yeah, I can see eventually in the standard you don't want to enter in that realm, but I guess also at the same time you may need to have an opinion, I guess, if you're doing like a bad job. I don't know.
Yeah, like some sort of like guidelines for some more practical use of reliability would be nice.
Yeah.
But then that might mean you have to rewrite the standards every couple of years when things change, research-wise.
Something that, at least for me, caught my attention is that in the standards, it is mentioned that you should always disclose reliability, but it's not asked to report error of measurement. And actually, the standard that says that you report error of measurement, it says something like, if you report it, then you should do it in the scale or in the, like with points in the same scale, but with an if. And I find that kind of weird because reliability, yeah, might relate with error of measurement. The error of measurement is the actual thing that matters the most, and that's not the thing that is like being asked to report. And if you report it just as a reliability, that's kind of hiding a little bit the more concrete effect that the error is having. And yeah, I don't agree with that. I think error of measurement should also be reported. And it's not like an if. But yeah, I was surprised with that actually.
I feel like that would be more useful for users too, if the goal is to, I mean, if in working with educators, sometimes everyone has different level of understanding, but it can really be boiled down to like, teacher sees a score, that's the score. And that's it. There's no range of, there's no error. Don't bother me with error. This is the score. This is it. So I think I agree that would be important to have written in the standards as like part and parcel with reporting reliability.
Yeah, actually, I was surprised that it wasn't like mandated. I thought it was mandated, but then when I read the standard, I think maybe I misunderstood. but my understanding was that like the error of measurement was part of the standards. And then when I read that part, the standards, actually it says if you do it, but it's not like forcing it. So yeah. Somebody else want to comment something? No? I have one last comment too. I think there is actually something that is not mentioned in the standards because of the time it was created. And it's everything related with reliability of machine learning outcomes. That thing, it's crazy. I mean, machine learning methods, they don't have no or very like poor metrics for reliability. Machine learning always assumes that there is no error of measurement in the inputs. And there's like no discussion about like how variable it can be, like the thing that you get after doing the thing. And now we are using more and more machine learning. So I hopefully in the new version, there needs to be some discussion about like how do you calculate the reliability in those methods.
I feel like you could easily double the length of the standards by including machine learning in all the chapters. I feel like that would take its own whole document to guide on.
Yeah, but that process needs to happen. I mean, we are using a lot right now. I mean, automatic scoring for reading passages is something that's used like daily. So yeah, that's tricky. All right, so we are on time now. If you want to stay and continue the conversation, please stay. I will stop the recording now. And well, thank you very much for joining. Next week we are having, 1 second. Next week we are having the Q&A session with Susan Lane. So yes, please, you still have time to include more questions. And well, as I said, you will have time also during the session to do extra questions at the end. And that's it. So thank you very much. I will stop the recording. If you want to stay and keep the conversation, please stay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.